Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Welcome to the Aliyah Day. It is my pleasure to be with all of you as we are diving into kind of the next to the last parashah. I guess it is the next to the last parashah of Deuteronomy, which is parashah Azinu. And we are going to be looking at this parashah, which is really the parashah about a song, about a poem that Moses wrote. The last parashah of Devarim is V'zot HaBracha, and we don't ever get a chance to study that one really because it kind of doesn't have a week dedicated to it, if you will, because of the way that the holidays fall. But in any case, we'll be looking at Azinu today, looking at some of the insights and so on and so forth. A little programming note, of course, naturally, this is the week of Rosh Hashanah. So we have lots of Rosh Hashanah coming up, several services. Service Thursday morning, Friday morning, Shabbat. And of course we have the Tashlik. We'll do our best to do some filming out there as best we can. So a lot going on. As a result, a little programming note. I'm going to have the Aliyah this morning. Obviously, I'm sitting here, and we will have it again tomorrow morning, but there will not be an Aliyah on Wednesday morning. So Wednesday, we're going to be prepping and making our way towards Rosh Hashanah. So everybody just be prepared. Schedule accordingly. We'll have the 1-800 where's the Aliyah, I can't help myself, line up so that everybody can call that number and get the counseling they need. But I also want to say, by the way, thank you so much for everybody for all the likes that you gave, all the love likes you gave to the Aliyah last week. Please keep that up. We fell a little short on the Friday Aliyah, had about 85 likes on that one. Fell a little short. However, the average likes for the Aliyot last week was 110. 110. So that's pretty amazing, actually. So thank you so much. Please be sure and like this video and all of our videos. Please don't. It's real easy to forget, because you're mesmerized by the teaching and so forth. So please don't forget to do that. Go back and like those videos if you forgot to like them. Go ahead and like them. And again, it's all about, we want to do everything we can do to make these videos, help them to go viral. And so more people will get in touch with the message and the learning. That's really the point, to help people connect to the message. So listen, a lot going on. We need to get our world saved. Rabbi and I recognized the other night we were running around doing some chore errands and things like that, and evidently in our area, in our immediate area, it was obviously homecoming. This was after Havdalah. We ran out to the store, ran out to do some things on Motzei Shabbos, and it was obviously homecoming. So there was these teenagers. Excuse me. Scoot up here. There was these teenagers running around, and they had their dresses on, and then the young men were, had their boutonnieres on and so forth. But the Rebbe and I were just, appalled at the types of dresses that the young ladies had, that they were wearing. They were all wearing basically the same dress, essentially, for the most part. They were just different colors, which I always found that weird because when I was growing up and going to high school, the girls never wanted to wear the same dress as the other girls. But that's our generation. Rebbetzin agreed with me. She's like, yeah, we would be like embarrassed if somebody was wearing the same dress or maybe just a different color. But nevertheless, it was obvious everybody was wearing the same dress. And if you could call it a dress, there's a point to this, by the way. But I was like looking at these young ladies and thinking, what father, what mother, but fathers particularly, let their little girls leave the house looking like that, because I don't want to sound a little bit, I don't want to sound too, oh, I don't know, bombastic or whatever, but I'm telling you right now, Rebbetzin will tell you, these dresses, they look like streetwalker dresses. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like ladies that have a certain occupation. I'm not even making that up. I was, you can imagine the dress. And on top of that, they were wearing, the big high heels, the stilettos. I mean, I was shocked. I was stunned. Okay. Here we are in Texas. And I'm sure lots of these girls, their parents are probably Christians, probably go to one of these churches around here. And I was like, I was shocked. I'm still today, I'm thinking about, I- how do you let your little girl, who's, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, walk out of the house looking at that to go on go out with a young man? And I feel sorry for the young men. It's not their, I mean, you know, young boys are young boys. How many of you gentlemen who are watching this morning were young men once? I mean, it's not fair to them, to pick up your date for, homecoming, and she looks like a streetwalker. I mean, that's not fair to him. You're asking the young man, "Hey, behave yourself." You know what I'm saying? We have to be practical here. I know that's probably not, for some people, that's like shocking. Like, oh wait, it shouldn't matter how she's dressed. And remember, I'm in the mayor of Realville. Okay, so I live in reality. You may not, but I do. Anyway, I was stunned. I was literally stunned, because I'm telling you right now, Rebetzin's going to agree with me. These young girls look like they were working. And I just thought, I shook my head. I said, honey, and it wasn't like two or three of them. They were everywhere. They were out and about. Everybody was out and about because they're having a good time, and teenagers being teenagers, and that's all fine. But there was like 15 or 20 of them we saw. And I just shook my head. I said, honey, we have such a hard job. Because these parents, my God, we're trying to teach, we're trying to reach people. It's anyway, I don't know. We're trying to reach here. What I realized, I've always known this, but it was like another realization. It's such a small remnant that we're reaching. Such a small remnant. And again, I don't know. Of course, I have no idea of knowing, but my guess would be that a lot of these young ladies, and you know what, and I could say something about the young men too, because whereas their address wasn't necessarily immodest, um, this sounds a little fuddy duddy, but I mean, back when I was a kid, you're going out to a date like that, you dress up, you dress nice, Some of these young men that didn't seem like they were dressed nice enough, but that's potentially petty. But the point, in fact, is that a lot of these young people, their parents are probably Christians. They probably go to the local Baptist church, Methodist church, Pentecostal church, non-denominational church. There's church on every corner around here, and they're all full on Sunday. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know, guys. Am I? Do you agree with me? We're reaching. So anyway, just kind of lost myself there for a minute, but I'm just perplexed at how the message of Rosh Hashanah, the message of Torah, the message of this is why Pauline Christianity is such a farce. This is why it's such a sham. It's because of stuff like this. There's no standard anymore. You just let your little girl walk out of the house just like she's going to work. You know what I mean? And she has her night job. It's terrible. It's horrible. And then we say things like, well, young man better not touch her. Please. You don't care. If you cared, you wouldn't let her dress like that. Anyway, sorry guys. I'm a little frustrated because I realized we were driving around, and I told Rebbetzin, I said, I guess we're reaching like 1 in 1,000. I looked out, we were driving by this neighborhood, and I looked out at the houses, the scores of houses that are out there. And I said, somewhere somewhere in this neighborhood that we're just looking, this random neighborhood, somewhere there's a mom, there's a dad that wouldn't buy their 14 or 15-year-old daughter a streetwalker dress with stilettos and let her leave the house looking like that. Somewhere there's a family like that. I don't know where, but they're out there somewhere, and that's who we're reaching. Trying to, anyway. Good morning, Hector. Glad you're here. Good morning, Peaches, formerly from Georgia. I'm glad you're here. Good morning, Anna. Boker Tov to you. Good morning, Kim Bement. I'm glad you're here. Good morning, Hepzibah. Boker Tov to you. Leah, good morning to you. Grace, watching from the United Kingdom. I'm glad you're here as well. Donna Jones from Ohio, Boker Tov. Boker Tov to you. Russ, glad you're here watching from West Virginia. Chanel from Cincinnati, glad to see you. Yishai Nadeya, I am glad you're here. Welcome. Chris and Crystal, Boker Tov to you. Amana, good to see you watching from the great Republic of Texas. Seth from Western Tennessee. By the way, I've caught a little bit on the news. I haven't really seen too much about it other than, that. But Western Tennessee, South Carolina, Western North Carolina. No, Eastern Tennessee. I'm sorry. I said Western. Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina, and Northern South Carolina apparently have had just incredible storm, flooding, and so forth that I understand is related to the hurricane. Man, I hope you guys are okay. The pictures I saw were bad, really bad. So I'm praying Hashem should help. I don't know I hope prayerfully none of our people are, in harm's way there. I hope nobody's in harm's way, but yeah. Good morning, Yolanda. Good morning, Makaya. Good to see you. Katura, good morning. So Anna has power. Anna, you're in South Carolina. What about Gianna? Gianna, are you okay? Is she on the channel? Good morning, Milka. Good to see you. Carolina, buenos dias. Carolina, is this your first time to be with us? If so, good morning. Good morning, David, watching from the great city of Irving. Why do I keep messing that city up? I call it Irvine. I call it Irvin. Anyway, it's Irving. Good morning, Levi. Good to see you. Who else do we have? Let's see. Isaac, good morning. Andrew De Leon, good morning to you. And Hannah, good morning. And Pierre, good morning. Shoshana Brenner, Boker Tov. Sergio, good to see you. Batya, good morning. Who else do we have this morning? Addie, good morning to you. Ahava Radomir from Scotland. Originally, however, from Poland, I understand. So you're a Polish Scot. Good morning, Batya. Did I say good morning, Batya? And good morning to Tangi. Good to see you this morning. Who else do we have this morning? Did I miss anybody? Heather Wilson. Good morning, Heather. Hope you're doing great. Amita, good morning. Top of the morning to you, Shmuel. Good to see you. Yeah, Batya. Partial dress is no dress. Yeah. You know what? I just was taken back. I'm sorry, obviously. Good morning, Melanie. Good to see you. Hence my little soapbox this morning. But to me, I guess the main takeaway with all of that was, we can complain about society. And we should complain. Good morning, Thelma. But really, it was just a realization of how small the remnant actually is. And I know y'all know that already. I wish that these videos, we talk about likes. I wish they had 1,000 likes. I wish they had 10,000 views, but the remnant. It's like I was saying on Shabbat, the reason the Messianic Gentile theology and its evil twin, the Noahide theology, are so popular is because you get to wear the streetwalker dress with the high heels and still go to heaven. I mean, really, think about it. Modesty doesn't apply to the Noahide or to the Messianic Gentile for that matter. Who cares? I'm seriously. Good morning, Thelma. Good morning, Michelle. Good to see you. Good morning, Baraka. Exactly, Milka. The parents are the ones buying the dress. Yeah. Johan, good morning. Ariella Rafaela, good morning to you. And who else do we have? Geneva from Ohio, good morning to you. Carolina, did you say this is your first time? Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Who else do we have? I feel I feel a little tired. We had a great, by the way, I feel a little scattered and tired this morning. So if I seem like I'm going slow, I feel like I'm going slow. Good morning, Emmanuel. Glad to see you from watch from Africa. If I seem like that, it's because I am. We had a great day yesterday putting up the sukkah. It was a lot of fun. Everybody was there. It went great. It went a lot faster than normal, but still, it's a lot of work, a lot of energy. But it's all good. Good morning, Sylvia, watching from Brazil. Good morning from Brazil. I'm still working on my faux Portuguese. It's coming. It's a lot slower than the faux French and faux Japanese. That's my other. Y'all haven't heard too much of my faux Japanese or my faux German, but next it's also working on my master's degree for those. Good morning to John Michael. Good to see you this morning. And who else Vania, good morning to you. Good morning to Sonia. Isn't conservative mom Sonia? I think so, right? And good morning. I think that's true. Good morning to Sonia, and good morning to all of the coworkers who are watching me at Sonia's place. Good morning, Don Bartlett. Don Bartlett, have you been here before? Looks like maybe a new name. And Baruch HaShem. All right, so welcome everybody. So sorry for I feel like I'm on slow motion this morning, but it's just because I'm tired. I'm pre-tired. I'm pre-tired for the upcoming Rosh Hashanah. But it's going to be good, though. I'm looking forward to it. Baruch Hashem. All right, so Parasha Ha'azinu. Man, can you believe that we're at the end of... good morning, Nellie Grace. Good to see you. Can you believe that we're at the end of Deuteronomy? We're about to start Torah portions over again. It's just incredible. It's amazing. Good morning, Kathy. I'm glad you're here. So, Ha'azinu... sorry, everybody. Good morning, Erwin, watching from the Philippines. So we have people watching from across the world this morning. So that's awesome. In the KO Tumash, look at a few insights on the KO Tumash. And as we're getting started, it says the greater part of Parasha Ha'azinu is a poem. Some people call it a song. A poem in which Moses, speaking as God's voice, adjures the Jewish people to remain true to God. Now, remember, by the way, that remaining true to God has a meaning, has a definition. And you and I don't have the prerogative of making that definition up. And so, therefore, biblically, Jewishly, which is the same thing, remaining true to God means remaining true to the covenant of Torah. Remaining true to the covenant of Torah. That's very crucial. And as we talked about last week, this has been restated over and over and over again in Parashat Deuteronomy. Remain true to the law of Moses. Remain true to the law of Moses. So remaining true to God, as the song is teaching us, means remaining true to the law of Moses. It says he bids them to learn from history, recalling both humanity's past mistakes and God's love and faithfulness in fulfilling his promises. He warns them of the consequences of violating the terms of the covenant, and finally reminds them that the purpose of all the vicissitudes of history is to bring them to their ultimate goal, which is the final redemption. So again, violating the terms of the covenant. Notice once again how we are reading, there's only one covenant. There aren't multiple covenants. There's not a Gentile covenant of either type, of either Christian Gentile, so-called Messianic Gentile, or of Noahides. There's not a covenant for them. This is not hard. This is not complicated. There's only one covenant. And if you're not in the covenant, then you're not in the covenant. And the terms of the covenant are the Torah, and we're not allowed to violate the terms of the covenant. Having said that, I want to emphasize because it comes up every single week. Somebody out there makes a comment and says, how can anybody keep the law of Moses? Because nobody can keep it perfectly. There's even somebody who commented and said that because people, human beings, are tempted with, sin, because of that, we're automatically guilty. And of course, they cite the Messiah who said, if you look at a woman and so forth and lust after her and so forth, then you're guilty of adultery or what have you. And so they say, see, are you saying you've never been tempted? Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not that I'm disagreeing with the Messiah, but I think he was bringing down simply a higher standard, right? To which, by the way, is communicated in Judaism. Let my thoughts be pure before you. But here's the trick. It doesn't mean that literally you're guilty of that sin. Okay, that's not what was being taught there. It's just a call simply to elevate your thoughts. But Judaism does not teach that if you have a bad thought that you are guilty of the sin. That's absurd. It's like saying that, you know what, because some of us have been so angry at somebody that you wanted to kill them, right? We've all been there, but yet are we really literally guilty of murder? Of course not. But even so, the issue is perfection has never been required. And by the way, it's a great point, Seth, and you brought that up on the comment thread, incidentally, and it's a great thread. It's a great point. Yeshua himself was tempted. Are we to suggest that Yeshua is a sinner? Really? You see, this is why it's great. It's an excellent point, Seth. And I'm so glad you mentioned that on the thread and you reminded me of it again here. This is why thinking things through is so important, which people don't do. And so, we look, perfection has never been a requirement. So when we talk about violating the terms of the covenant, does that mean that if you sin intentionally or what have you, or unintentionally, that you're kicked out of the covenant? Well, of course not. Of course not. Are there consequences for that? Well, yes, there are. Is there a remedy to fix the issue? Of course there is. So violating the terms of the covenant really are talking about just blowing the whole covenant off like you don't even care. So it says all of this, of course, rings very familiar, since only 3 parashah to go in parashah Tavo, the consequences of honoring or violating the terms of our covenant with God were spelled out quite graphically. That being the case, what does the Haazinu poem add that was not covered in the admonitions in Parashat Tavo? The answer may lie in the fact that the admonitions in Parashat Haazinu are cast as a poem, a literary form whose use of the Torah usually reserves for joyous and thankful praise to God. So the point of this poem, Haazinu, is to draw our attention that we need to follow God, and that all of our sufferings, all of our issues and that we have been through in history are all towards that end. It says, thus the purpose of this poem is not just to review the contractual terms of our covenant with God, but as Moses says immediately after the poem, pay close attention to all the words that I testify to you today. We are bidden to consider all these things, take them to heart, and draw the proper conclusion. The poem and its message, that God takes our commitment to him seriously and that our behavior can determine the course of history, are meant to infuse our lives and our relationship with God with enthusiasm, focus, and yes, even joy. Goes on to say here that we learn from Haazinu that we should consider all phases of our life, even those marked by embarrassing failures or suffering, as necessary stages in personal growth, all leading to our eventual maturation as human beings, fully devoted to our divine mission and equipped to fulfill it. You know, I think all of us could look back on our life and areas of our life and those difficult moments and say, you know, man, that was an embarrassing time period I went through, or I made some bad choices, or I went through a difficult situation. But had you not gone through that, you would not be sitting where you are right now listening to me. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. You know, I've talked about this, Reb Sina, I've talked about this in times past. You know, there was a particular job field I was trying to get into a little more than 20 years ago. Really wanted to go that direction, and it just didn't work out. It just didn't materialize. And that at the time it led to a lot of personal frustration. I wasn't pleased with what I was doing. I didn't like the job field I was in. And, you know, that fell through. And then I tried doing this other thing, try to start my own business for a little while, doing something else. And it kind of was semi-successful. But it was just frustration. I really wanted to be in ministry back in those days. And I just, anyway, point being is that all that frustration, all that seeming failure and just, you know, it was a couple of years of just, man. But it was all of that was really the catalyst that prompted us to start what would eventually become Lapid Judaism. Had we not been through all that, I'm telling you right now, had that failure and frustration and, you know, all that not happen, we wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you. And so would I trade what I'm doing now to go back and do that? No way. You know, so yeah, I mean, all of life is leading to this moment. Your goal is to be a Lapid Jew. That's what God's called you to. I believe that He's called the whole world to be that. And at the same time, I also recognize there is a remnant, as I was waxing about earlier. So this is an interesting insight from Me'am Loez. I you know, remember how Yeshua said, "I call heaven and earth as witnesses that I've not come to destroy the law of Moses." I mean, that's the paraphrase what he said. I mean, we remember that, right? He called heaven and earth as witnesses that he did not come to destroy the law of Moses. Okay. And then of course, Christianity has taught for the last 2,000 years and still today that he came to destroy the law of Moses. Well, he didn't come, you know, he came to fulfill it, which would make it basically so you don't have to do it anymore, which essentially is destroying it. I mean, it's absurd. But to that end, I want you to listen to this, because in Deuteronomy 32, where Haazinu begins, chapter 32 and verse 1. By the way, welcome, Jen. And you're right. Modesty is not taught in the church. And I would argue that self-respect is not taught in the church. And I would also further say that respect for HaShem is not taught in the church anymore. So that's why people show up to the church and they're wearing, I mean, I've seen them on summer days. I've seen people as I'm driving around on Sunday walking into these various churches around here, and they're wearing shorts and flip-flops. I mean, I've seen it. Ball caps, t-shirts. It's crazy. And we could go on and on and on about that. But none of that's taught anymore. It's horrible. Anyway, I digress. Chapter 32 and verse 1 says, "Listen, O heavens, and I will speak. Earth, hear the words of my mouth." So it says in verse 31:28, Moses promises to bring heaven and earth as witnesses. Therefore, he calls upon them to fulfill his pledge. According to the Torah, punishment can only be administered to a sinner if he is forewarned in the presence of two witnesses. The Song of Ha'azinu contains many warnings of punishment. To make those warnings halakhically binding, Moses calls upon two witnesses. Therefore, by the way, therefore, when Yeshua called heaven and earth as witnesses that he did not come to destroy the law of Moses, and he actually said, by the way, don't even think that I've come to destroy the law of Moses. Therefore, when people say that the law of Moses has been abolished, discontinued, fulfilled so that you don't have to do it, which is a total lie, whatever word salad they use to basically come to the conclusion that the law of Moses has been abolished, I mean, right? You should know that you're bearing false witness against the Messiah. And you have two true witnesses, heaven and earth, who are testifying against you that you're a false witness. And I should add that being a false witness is really, really bad in biblical law. Nobody wants to be a false witness. This is why we should be very careful that when we hear that somebody committed some type of offense, we don't know anything about the situation. We don't know if they did or didn't do it. We should be very careful if that's the case, that we don't really know the evidence. Like this person's been accused of this or whatever. We have to be very careful not to go, yep, they're definitely guilty. We don't know. And what if we're wrong? Boom. It's bad, really bad. So the last thing we want to be doing is calling Messiah a liar, who he said, don't even think, I'm calling heaven and earth as witnesses against you today. Don't even think that I've come to destroy the law of Moses. And for us to turn around and say, yep, it's been totally abolished, that's calling him a false witness. So it's being a false witness against him, I should say. So it says here, heaven and earth were chosen for this role because of their enduring nature. Moses explains, I am flesh and blood. Tomorrow I will die. If Israel complains, why are we being punished? We never accepted this covenant. Who will testify against them? Okay. Alternatively, heaven and earth were chosen because they will be instruments of reward and punishment. If Israel merits, God will grant you a good surplus and the fruit of your land. God will open up his good treasures in heaven to give you your land's rain. Deuteronomy 28, 11 through 12. Correspondingly, if Israel sins, these witnesses will be the first to administer punishment. He will stop up the heavens so there not be rain. The land will not give forth its crops. Deuteronomy 11, 17. Now, Sifri explains that heaven and earth were selected as witnesses because of the unchanging nature with which they fulfill God's mission. The natural order of the world is constant and unchanging. Has the sun ever failed to rise? Has one ever planted wheat seed and seen a barley crop sprout forth? Similarly, Israel is asked to emulate the behavior of these witnesses and to serve God in a constant, unchanging manner. Which brings up an interesting point. How can we serve God in a constant, unchanging manner if we can't serve God? Meaning, one of the latest arguments that I've seen from Christians is no one can keep the law. You can't keep the law because there's no temple. Of course, they forget that. Well, let me say this. Let me put it like this. Most Christians would say, right, that Daniel was a righteous man. Do you agree that Daniel was a righteous person? And I think that most Christians would agree with me that Daniel was a law-abiding Jew. Do you think that I'm correct in that assumption? How about, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? They would think that they're righteous people too as well, correct? Right? They were saved from the fiery furnace. Daniel in the lion's den. Do you agree with me that that's the case? Are you aware that those people lived in Babylon and there was no temple? How many of you would agree with me? Now, Christians may or may not know this. I'll grant that. But remember how Daniel refused to eat the meat? He became a vegetarian when he lived in Babylon in exile. Why? Because he didn't want to eat non-kosher meat. So he became a vegetarian. Remember that? So the Christians today are like, we didn't know Jews can't keep the Torah. They're trying to find they're trying to find a validity for Paul. And of course, it doesn't work because in Paul's day, there was a temple. So their excuse today doesn't work back then. You see what I mean? So today they're trying to say, nobody can keep the law of Moses. See, you can't do sacrifices. There's no temple. Okay, press pause on that thought for a moment. Let's go back in time to Paul's day where Paul was lying to you and telling you that nobody could keep the law of Moses, and yet there was a temple. So now what's your excuse? And Paul lied. You look, first of all, God said you could keep the law of Moses. That's number one. That's the most important thing. Number two, find me a law when the temple existed and you were, whatever. Find me a law you couldn't keep. The answer is there aren't any. There's no law that you can look at. And so therefore you have to go, then you have to come up with this crazy lunatic stuff like, well, yeah, have you ever been tempted? If you've been tempted, then you're guilty of the sin. That's not true. That's phony baloney plastic been a good time rock and roll. Well, have you ever lied? Yeah, I have. But guess what? I chose to lie. I didn't have to lie. Lying's still a choice. But anyway, now let's go back to there's no temple. Well, guess what? There wasn't a temple either when Daniel and the boys were living, and yet they're righteous, yet they follow the Torah. So what's the answer? The answer is that when something like that happens, there's no temple. It's not our fault. There's no temple. There's no temple. Then when you can't do something because you're not capable of doing it, because in this case, there's no temple, then not doing it is actually a mitzvah. It's no longer binding on us. At the moment, it's not binding on us because there's no means to do it. And again, it's not our fault. If we could go build a temple, we would, but we can't. So therefore, it's not binding upon us. But if there's one set of laws that are not binding on us, does that mean that all the laws that we can do, we're no longer obligated to do? Is that how it works? Is that how life works? If you don't have to keep a certain set of laws, does that mean you're free to forget all the laws? There's certain laws in the penal code that don't apply to you or me because we're not in certain positions. They only apply to certain people in certain circumstances. Does that mean, therefore, that all the penal code is no longer applicable to us because certain laws aren't applicable to us? There's certain laws on the books that kind of are outdated. Who goes around stealing horses? Did you know that horse thievery is still against the law in Texas? Well, back in the Western days, that was a big deal. Today, stealing a horse isn't so much a thing. Does that now mean that none of the other laws are applicable to us? Of course not. The logic is clearly faulty, right? Now, we conclude this morning with this. This is where this little statement here is where I came up with a title for today. I thought it was just a great statement. So it says, heaven and earth also refer to the body and the soul. This song emphasizes the importance of the observance of Torah and mitzvot as it addresses, it's addressed to both to the body and to the soul. Both of these must accept the responsibility for Torah practice. So, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to Torah, it's about the body and the soul. This is why somebody said it earlier that the church doesn't teach modesty. And there's a reason for that. It used to, man, back in the day, it used to. Not anymore. And the reason is because the church became focused on supposed spirituality only. But the spirituality is phony baloney. Plastic banana, good time rock and roll. But nevertheless, they focused on spirituality only and neglected the body, meaning they neglected the physical person. They neglected this reality. We're just trying to fix our morality. We're trying to fix our character, not realizing that the two are connected. Ladies and gentlemen, your daughter can't be a good human being running around dressed like a prostitute. I'm sorry. How you look on the outside reflects what you look like on the inside. And anybody that would tell you differently is lying to you. The whole don't judge a book by the cover is stupid. Of course. Why do you think companies spend many millions on marketing and designing their product? Why do you think if it doesn't matter, then when you go to the liquor store, then all the bottles should look exactly the same and all the labels should look exactly the same. When you go to the liquor store, if marketing doesn't matter, then you should just look at the bottle. It should say whiskey from Texas, whiskey from Kentucky, whiskey from Tennessee. The bottle's the same, the label's the exact same, and you wouldn't care. But that's not true, is it? I use whiskey as an example, but you could use cereal boxes. You could use anything, Crayola boxes. You could use anything as an example. Millions of dollars are spent on the product, jar or bottle or box, because that is trying to tell you on the box or the bottle what's on the inside. So here we are I'm trying to be spiritually moral, but I'm running around dressed like a thug. I know what I'm saying is real old fashioned and real, old fogey, I guess, but it's reality. What would you think of me if I got on the pulpit on Shabbat and I was wearing shorts and flip flops and an old, just an old t-shirt and ball cap. And I got there with my really cool music stand and I was trying to teach you deep things. Would you listen to me? Okay, let me put it like this. Suppose that you were in a very serious court situation, criminal or civil, doesn't matter. You had a choice between two attorneys. Now, listen, ask yourself this question. You haven't talked to either one of them yet. So you don't know if one's brilliant and one's not. You have no idea. But there's two attorneys standing in the room and you've got to talk to one of them about your case. One is wearing a business suit and a tie. The other is wearing shorts and flip-flops and wearing a Pearl Jam t-shirt and got a ball cap on backwards. Both are advertising that they could be your attorney. Which one are you going to talk to? Or at least talk to first. Now, if you say that it doesn't matter, I'm going to tell you right now, either one of two things are true. Either you're lying or you're not all that smart, which is probably why you're in the situation you're in. So I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to talk to the person that's got the business suit on. Because to you, that says I'm an attorney that knows what I'm talking about. You're not going to go to Frodo over there wearing the flip-flops and the shorts, right? So it matters. So when we're talking about Torah addresses the body and the soul, and that's the point. Okay. Joseph's okay. I'm gonna conclude with this. I know this is kind of my shtick in a lot of ways, but it's so frustrating. Yosef says even the attorneys will tell their clients to dress up because it looks more respectable and attracts kindness and mercy. How much more should we represent and present ourselves to Hashem? Exactly, Yosef. That's exactly true. Exactly true. I'll tell you a quick story about that, in fact. So Rebbe Tzin one time got on a jury, and it was a DUI case. And anyway, she got selected for the jury, and I wanted to sit in on the case. I just thought I enjoy stuff like that. So I was in the audience, in the gallery, I should say, not gallery. And anyway, so the defense attorney client came in, and she was, she's being accused, right, of having too much to drink, and she was not dressed appropriately. She was dressed like, well, kind of like she had a night business too. You know what I mean? And at one point, I'm just kind of sitting behind the attorneys, and she got up to leave the courtroom to go do something, and the defense attorney turned to the prosecutor, and he was lamenting. He's like, I told her to dress, appropriately, and he was just lamenting the fact that the way she was dressed, because why? Because the way she was addressed could have had a negative impact on her from the jury. Hello. So yeah, it matters. And so the point is that everybody talks about, well, the inside matter is not so much the outside, but the truth of the matter is that what matters on the what is on the outside is actually reflecting what's on the inside. That's the truth. Okay. So again, we come back to Torah. People say, well, God doesn't care about those things that we do, eating kosher, lighting candles, keeping Shabbat, keeping Rosh Hashanah. Yes, he does. And you might think to yourself, well, I'm doing these things, but am I really being spiritual? Yes, you are. Because what you do in the physical realm reflects what's going on in the spiritual realm. But people have been lied to, and they lied to themselves, and they say, well, I'm deeply spiritual, but when you see me, I'm a total mess. No. That's not how life works. It's like somebody who says, I'm a really organized person, but you walk in their office, and their office looks like a bomb went off. They're not organized. So Torah deals with body and soul. End of our Aliyah today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Please like this video, share it with all of your friends, and share it on all of your social media. And subscribe to the channel, please, if you have not done so. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow will be our last Aliyah for the week. And then, of course, we have Rosh Hashanah galore. So God love you all. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you mañana.